Hello, everyone. This is a very special day for me because I love the marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and I love the people who made this and make me very happy. It's Dan Palladino and Amy Sherman-Palladino, the people who gave birth to this wonderful show. And I have to say, for me, Mrs. Maisel came just in the nick of time because with things happening in the country that are a little bit depressing, I needed a uplift in the worst way.
Yeah, we're all desiring Eisenhower to be our president now.
Why not?
I haven't been before, but now yes. But what I love what you do is you manage to combine nostalgia, but also keep it reflective of what's going on now a bit. And I think you do that in a very smart and fun and also thoughtful way. And I appreciate what you're showing, what women were, but also what women are now, and mixing it up very well. And I have to say, I'm a baby boomer. And so I watched Joan Rivers and Toady Fields and Phil Stiller on TV, so I know that. But I have to say, I was thinking about this. I rewatched the season recently, and I realized the term "tits up," which Susie, which is Mrs. Maisel's manager, and Midge, before she goes on stage, it's sort of like a good luck catchphrase. And I looked at a lot of articles and interviews you guys have done, but I realized there's a woman who, at first I thought, oh, is she really realistic getting away with this kind of humor? But then I remember Rusty Warren. Do you know that name?
But yeah, vaguely, yes.
But she had an album called Knockers Up.
Oh, no, she had that song, yeah. Dr. Domeno used to play her a lot.
Right, and I just remember my parents having cocktail parties, and they had her recorded albums. First came Sing Along with Mitch, and then came Knockers Up when they were a little...
That's the order that it came in.
Wasn't her big hit Bounce Your Boobies?
Yes.
I think that was her.
Yeah.
I think that was her big live song.
But did you take it from her, or is that...
No, actually, Tits Up, there's Brits say everything went tits up, and it's sort of everything went kind of crazy and wrong, and I just liked the idea that that's the moniker that they used, also because it's sort of like chin up for broads, it's tits up,
Yeah, it was the Susie character's kind of usual crass way to say break a leg, basically.
Right.
And it became, and then we just used it again and again as like sort of, it's a bit of an inside joke for them. It's their shared thing that they like. So it felt natural.
Right. Now, your dad was a stand-up comic. Did you ever see him in the club perform?
I saw him perform mostly on the cruise lines, because by the time I was old enough to go see his, even though he was not dirty, but still, like, you don't bring a kid to these things. He was mostly working cruise lines for like the last, 30 years of his existence. And so I did have to go to Alaska. It was horrifying. But I did see him on the cruise lines, because they would have these beautiful theaters, like big theaters, and he would do 2 shows a week. And he would perform just at the halfway mark where everybody's starting to realize they've been completely ripped off by this entire thing, and nothing is free, and it's going to cost them a fortune. And the kids have all sort of organized into weird Lord of the Flies corners and darkened hallways, and the husbands and the wives are yelling at each other. And then my dad would come out halfway through and say, "Who else can't find the dining room?" And they're like, "Oh my God." And like, so it was a whole act about like, I can't fit into my bathroom. Who can fit into my bathroom? And he would just sort of make fun of the cruise lines, whatever line he was on, and relieve tension and make sure that husbands and wives didn't murder each other and throw themselves off the side of the boat. So I did see him in action there. He saved a lot of lives. He was a humanitarian comic.
He was a human life jacket.
It was. Yeah. But so I did see him, but his early days of touring and Catskills and all of that. I was not privy to that. I was privy to the wonderful stories when he came home. So to me, you know, that seemed very romantic and intellectual and strange and unique. And, you know, probably when you were there, it just smelled bad and your bed had, you know, no pillows and you were starving and you were cold and everything was miserable. But to me, it was like the most romantic thing in the world. So,
well, did you
know about it? I turned him into a woman.
and good for him. But
a cute woman, you know. I mean, I made him adorable.
When Amy writes about you, it's very slimming. That's what we do.
Yeah, I put you in a corset.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. But so what traits did you take from him, or did he hang out with other comics and things like that, like Broadway Danny Rose kind of?
We had a lot of Broadway Danny Rose moments in our backyard. A lot of men sitting around smoking odd-smelling cigarettes and making each other laugh about the old days and talking about, you know, their trials and tribulations. But my dad's style of comedy was very conversational, and when he would go on the cruise lines, you know, part of his charm and why they loved so much is he could talk about each day. And when we were trying to decide like what sort of comedy Midge would have, you know, there's different styles and different styles of jokes. We felt like conversational, stream of conscious, whatever happened to her 5 minutes before she went up on stage, that was gonna kind of be her thing. And that was my father's style of comedy.
Yeah. And now what is, I can guess what the difference is, but you know, I love the Gilmore Girls. That was on the WB though.
It
and
was.
So I assume
dancing around at the WB.
Yes.
Yeah. But I assume working for a streaming site with like Amazon, who seems to, I love your production values and the clothing, and I'm just seeing money there in a way that maybe
it's a tragically expensive show. and,
right.
and every time we show up, we're kind of surprised they let us in the building. So
yeah. But considering all that, I mean, you got to go to Paris. I mean, I'm like that. Those 2 episodes, I just said, oh, I'm going to love this season, because I appreciated you took us out of the apartments and all that and got us, you know, moving around a bit more. It worked so well. But
the character, we've always seen her as a woman in the world. I mean, in the pilot, you know, once we got past her first official stand-up, which was the toast at her wedding, we showed her out in the world. We showed her walking down Riverside Drive. We showed her going to the butcher's. And that's always been an important thing for us to remember, to like have her out in the world. It's easy for us and cheaper to have people talking in rooms and have people talking on the sets.
Mention the C word.
But that woman has to be out in the world, because that's really the point. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's thematically her life was small and contained. And then it blew up, and suddenly her life keeps expanding and getting bigger. So it's sort of our responsibility to show the audience her world as it gets bigger, which would be strange if she just kept walking up and down a hallway. So
well, you can't do this on a regular network, because she couldn't do her jokes and couldn't show her boobs and things like that. So.
And I'm not sure a regular network would care for a character like Midge. You know, I think she's a streaming gal because she's very, she's adorable, but she can also be a little narcissistic, and she can be a little all about me, and she's got wonderful, adorable qualities, and you know, she's a woman. She's got it all. She's got the good, the bad, the indifferent, and we want to be able to show it all, because frankly, that's what makes you a comic. A comic is somebody who also acknowledges the bad, and often, you know, wallows in the bad and the dark and the problems and the broken parts of your psyche. That's where the jokes come from. It doesn't come from, hey, I'm adorable and I can make a cake. You know, that's it's just not very funny. So it's you got to be able to step into that dark. It's so delicious. Oh my God. Anyway.
But it still is beyond the pale that the Gilmore Girls' lone Emmy win was for makeup. How did that happen?
We did this.
This was nuts.
Well, it was partly a bias against outlets like the WB that the Emmys at the time it completely ignored.
Yeah, they called them weblets.
Yeah, I mean, we were different from a lot of the shows. It really was sort of a teen, like a specifically teen romance network. We had teen romance in our show, which is what they liked, but we were a lot more. And it was more sophisticated. We always had a lot of buzz in the press about, oh, well, Lauren Graham should get an Emmy nomination and an Emmy, and she should have.
Absolutely.
And maybe the show. But yeah, ironically, we did one show that was this giant. We recreated the Pageant of the Masters thing that they do down in San Diego every year, which is this crazy reenactment of old paintings. They would have 12 real people reenact the Last Supper, with the 13th being Jesus. And they would do it, and it would look like the painting, and they would stand still there for 60 seconds, and everybody would applaud. It's kind of the greatest thing ever. They've been doing it for
completely nuts.
And we recreated that in Stars Hollow, and we went all the way. And yeah, so we got this makeup nomination, and then our makeup person won, and she's the only person who got an award for girls.
Well, I think
such is life.
Oh, you're frozen.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
I think they
unfrozen.
More than made up for it last year at the Emmys, and it's wonderful the awards you did win, and you're like the first woman to win for writing and directing. Is that?
And that's, I think, scuttlebutt in the same year.
In the same year, maybe, or a year. I don't know.
Well, you deserve that and more. So in my book, because this was like a Broadway show every week almost for me.
Yeah.
I feel like that too. It's a very, very big production, and we have we literally couldn't pull it off if we didn't have the people working for us that we do. We've got geniuses working for us at every level, so that the sets are brilliant, and then the costumes are amazing, and then the cinematography is gorgeous, and then these actors are perfect and lovely, and they like each other, and they come out of their trailers, and they're not schmucks at all. They're just delightful people, and it's everybody's sort of there working together for like a common goal. It feels like the most expensive, let's put on a show in the barn, Mickey and Judy sort of production that has ever existed in the world.
That's a good description. I agree. But now season 2, I like I said, those Paris episodes, and especially just seeing Tony Shalhoub in a beret was making me happy every time.
Yeah, it kind of was worth everything.
Yeah. And then the other thing is I love Susie, not just because her name is Susan, but because she's great. But that red plunger made me so happy. It made me laugh so hard, and she pulled it off so well, and you believed she could get away with that. And then when Mr. Crisscross showed up, I was just like, dying. So
yeah, the part was one of those things like it just made us giggle when we were in the writer's room. It just made us giggle, and you just sort of cross your fingers, because we wrote it then into like 3 episodes in a row. So it's like the plunger had to work, because it had to work for 3 straight hours of her using the plunger as a tool to gain access. So we tend to think like, if it really initially makes us giggle, don't overthink it. Just put that plunger in Alex Borstein's hand and let her go.
No, that was
an Alex.
Yeah.
And I did get to talk to Michael about the scene, but that thing with the baseballs was insane.
Yeah.
And he told me, you trusted him and the other actor to keep doing that. And I mean, they didn't stop. He said it was one take.
Well, it was, and it was one of those things where it wasn't necessarily going to be one take, and then we started rehearsing it. And it was the last shot of the season. It was 3:00 in the morning, and some of my favorite scenes are literally with Archie and Joel, because first of all, they're sensational together, but they're such gamers, those guys. Like, as we rehearsed it, and as I sort of grabbed my City-Camp guy, Jim McConkey, by his shirt and sort of dragged him around where I wanted him to be, it felt like I don't, and Michael saw me do it. He kept saying, is this going to be a oneer? Is this going to be a oneer? I'm like, I don't know, Michael, I'm still deciding. And he's like, all right. And he's like, it's going to be a oneer, right? Just tell us it's going to be a oneer. And by the end of rehearsal, it's like, yeah, it's going to be a oneer. And they are, they're two guys that find that an incredible challenge, and they were brilliant. I love them. I love my boys.
That was amazing. And like, when I knew I interviewed him, and when I knew that, I go, oh, I gotta watch that baseball scene again. I gotta ask him about that, because in the moment, my jaw dropped. I just said, how are they doing this? So, he was proud of it. He was very proud of getting it all right. Now, I am a big believer in rituals, and even in the Gilmore Girls, they like, if you break a rule, like, we always do this. This is what we do, and you got to eat this, and you got to do that, and you got to go there, and all that. And I was raised Catholic, but I get Jewish people fully. I have enough friends that it rubs off on you. But also, my dad was an educator, and he used to go to conventions at the Catskills. So I've been to Grossinger's, and I've been to Concord. I know they're not there anymore. I know you filmed somewhere in Binghamton, which
yes, we did.
I will never go to for vacation necessarily, but it looked good on TV.
Mm-hmm.
But we found it's called Soundlord.
Yeah, but is that something you are? Is that your trait, that you like things to be like, what to expect, that you're going to go to the Catskills and then you're going to do all these things that you always do, that kind of thing?
Well, it's comforting. Like, it's, I actually grew up, we didn't have a whole lot of rituals in my family. We didn't have, like, every year on this thing, we all get together and we do this. And we just didn't, we weren't that kind of family. We were a little bit more of a vagabond family. It was kind of the three of us, and whoever got out the door first kind of led. And I always grew up kind of like loving the concept that, like, on once a year, the whole family gets together and they have this dinner, or like the idea of rituals and things that you can count on. It was just appealing to me because it just wasn't the way my family functioned. And when we went to do Gilmore Girls, and it was all about a woman taking her daughter and sort of carving out a whole completely different family in Stars Hollow because she couldn't relate to her own family. I felt like, well, rituals are going to be very important to her in raising this girl. She's going to want things that they are in sync on, and they understand, and they have a second language on. And I think it adds to the comfort level, and why people kind of dug the relationship between the two of them, because they had these things in common that they counted on. It's something you can count on. Yeah. And sometimes in this world, it's nice to have something you can count on, right? even if it's a red vines in a movie,
Right. No, I agree. No, that's me. And that's why I used to watch Monk, because that's me. Things have to be a certain way. And if it annoys people, too bad. So for season 3, okay, this is what I think I know so far. That Aben Rose's son is going to give him another grandchild.
Oh.
Yes. No? That's what Toby said at some point. And the other thing, I'm worrying about their apartment.
Are you?
Yes. It gave me agita.
We don't want you to worry about anything, because first of all, it's not real. Yeah, so calm down. And the apartment is a beautiful apartment, but it doesn't even have hot water. So it's and our show is about change and explosions, and one person's left turn makes everybody reevaluate what their lives are. So we promise you this. One hand giveth, one hand taketh away, but then the giveth can come again. So we will, if we make you sad, we'll make you happy some other way.
Yes, hopefully.
And I assume Susie is going to rep Sophie as well somehow.
I don't know.
No,
we haven't read the scripts yet.
It would be unlikely.
And Sterling K. Brown, is there romantic things going on there?
He's showing up.
With you and Sterling? Is that what she's asking?
I kind of have a thing.
Let's have this out right now.
I kind of dig Sterling. I love him.
Oh, you're stand in line because
I know he's delicious.
But given that we're heading into the 60s, right? Are we? Yeah, things are going to be unritualized pretty soon, I think, and things are going to shift a little more rapidly now.
Things move. Things change. It's at the beginning of the 60s was still a little bit like the 50s. It sort of gained momentum as you got deeper into the 60s, but
yeah, we're about a year and a half from Bob Dylan showing up in the Village, which is kind of like a demarcation point, and then also the Beatles showing up. But we're a few years from Beatles.
Yeah,
from the Beatles,
a few years from Beatles,
years.
and Kennedy is not quite president yet, so we're.
But Bob Dylan's packing his bag and
he is.
He's thinking of.
He's working on it.
Yeah. We're on the perch of a new era. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for making these wonderful shows, and you made my life much better for the past several years.
Okay.
Very sweet. Anything we can do to help, seriously.
All right, and good luck.
Out of bed in the morning.
On Tuesday, I'm rooting for you very, very strongly.
Very sweet. Thank you very much.
Anyway, thank you for your time.
Bye, Susan.